Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. It's Thursday. It's April the 9th. We're going to have a good time today. Israel doesn't want to do a ceasefire. So we had a ceasefire, but maybe it won't last. Maybe we won't go. Listen, I don't like doing bad news. I told you that yesterday. And so I actually am going to lead off today's show with something that we almost never do. I'm going to lead off with an explanation about what it is that I think we're doing here. We're trying to have a good time. I'm not trying to bring you down. I actually have a whole bunch of comedy that we can drop in on you, because why the heck not? But this program covers topics that inherently are not great news. What I'd like to do, my aspirational attempt, is to present it to you in a way that doesn't sound so bad, because we can laugh about it and we know that it's out of our control. One of the easiest things in the world to do, let me say that again. One of the hardest things in the world to do, but one of the most important things that you can do for easing your mind, is recognizing that you don't have control over the world outside. It reminds me of this quote that comes from the 7 Years in Tibet movie. It's got the little kid. He's the Dalai Lama, and he's talking to Brad Pitt, who was wearing maybe my favorite movie outfit ever. It was a tweed pants or something, and he has them make it. You can make me the trousers. He says something like that. Anyway, the Dalai Lama's sort of quote to him is that essentially that if what you're doing, if the problem that you have has a solution, then there's no sense in worrying about it. And if there is no solution to the problem, then worrying will do no good. It's kind of a bifurcated thing. And either way, the worry is not the answer. So allow me to kind of sum up the nature, after these several years, of what we're doing here. I did the program yesterday, and immediately I was like, why have I not come to this conclusion? This is a Mel Brooks thing. That's what we're trying to do here. Enjoy.
Sire, I have news.
And what sort of news do you have? Not bad news, is it? You know I can't take bad news. The day started out so good. Had a good night's sleep. Had a good BM. I don't want to hear any bad news. Now, what type of news is it?
Well, to be perfectly frank, it's bad.
I knew it! I knew it was bad news. Wait a minute. I have an idea. Maybe if you tell me the bad news in a good way, it won't sound so bad.
The bad news in a good way. Yes, I can do that. Yes, bad news in a good way. Yeah. Well, here goes. Wait till you hear this. I just bumped into Robin of Locksley. He's back from the Crusades. You know, he just beat the crap out of me and my men. He hates you and he loves your brother, Richard. He wants to see you hanged. We're in an awful lot of trouble.
What, are you crazy? Why are you laughing? This is terrible news.
Well, you told me I was just trying to soften the blow.
That's exactly what I think we're trying to do here. You could be informed. We're just trying to soften the blow. I don't know why it just occurred to me at the end of the program yesterday. I was like, why didn't I have that clip? Why didn't I have that ready to go? So there you have it. That's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to not do that, I guess. I don't want to just laugh hysterically and then tell you something terrible. We're softening the blow. It's just, it's not great news. But that's okay. And it's not Robin of Locksley coming to carve our hearts out. So there you go. Folks, these are one of our sponsors for today's program. These are the folks over at Cove Pure. You can find their website at covepure.com/KYLE. WeebPure.com/KYLE. Those are all the letters. Quite easy to do. Save yourself $200 on their normal price when you use our promo code. If you didn't use our promo code, you'd be paying a lot more. Maybe you're wondering why you don't feel great. Some of you, it's because you're not PTing hard enough and you should be doing some physical training. That's okay. The other thing you need to do is you need to drink water. How many of you are drinking enough water a day? Every single time I say that, by the way, our chat goes nuts and tells me how much water they drink. Congratulations. For those of you that are not, consider changing that immediately. You can do so with the folks over at Cove Pure's product. It is a desktop/countertop water purification system. It uses clear wave technology. It removes 99.9% of contaminants. Keeps your water free of things that are not water, like PFAs and microplastics and pharmaceutical residue and fluorides and other junk. You can get all of the dissolved solvents out, which they conveniently call total dissolved solvents, or TDS. That's kind of fun. It's very easy to use. It allows you to pick the temperature of the water that comes out. You pick the size, and then you can easily measure with those presets how it's working. Do you want hot water to be able to make instant coffee? You can do that. Do you want cold water because you're just drinking a cup of hydration? So be it. You want lukewarm because you're like my wife and you don't like ice in your water for some reason. All those things are options and they're really easy to do. It takes no plumbing. There's no additional installation. You simply plug it in. It takes less than 15 minutes to set up. We did that months and months and months ago, and my kids use it every single day. So check them out. If you guys do not have water purification, if you do not have water that tastes just like water, which actually is a massive change when you're used to it tasting like something else, check out Cove Pure, COVEPURE.com/KYLE. There is a link in the show description as usual. Support our sponsors to support the program. We appreciate them, and I appreciate you guys looking into it. Let's do today's show. Let's try to have a good time. Can we have a good time? There's not a lot of people in the media space that I would consider to be friends. There are people that are friendly. There are people that are acquaintances. There's people that I've interacted with and I have like positive relationships with, but like I wouldn't want to go out and have a beer with them. But there are people that I would definitely go have a beer with, even though I don't really drink beer anymore. And one of them is Alex Jones. He gave some salient advice. This is probably going to make it onto the soundboard because I don't know how he gets away with being Alex Jones all the time, but he's Alex Jones on and off camera. He gave some advice to Donald Trump about the Middle East. I think this is salient advice. This is actually really good advice for everybody, whether or not you actually have this particular member as part of your anatomy. It's a really short clip. It's going to end up in your brain like an earworm.
Don't stick your dick in a light socket or a beehive.
That's it. That's the advice in the Middle East. It could also go really easily about the domestic policy as well, okay? All you need to do is just do the thing that you said you wanted to do, and then nobody has to be upset with you. Or you could muck up an economy that was on the recovery. You could go and you could start, a conflict. You could get yourself involved in making people think that you're somehow a toady for another foreign government by acting in ways that are not particularly useful to your own agenda. And then at the end of it, you only have yourself to blame. If you happen to just be the person that goes after a beehive or a light socket, it's not the light socket's fault. And it's probably not the beehive's fault. I would say that it's probably your fault. You've made an interesting choice. You don't need to do it. Okay, so let's start with some interesting sort of Twitterverse news. This is also, I think, relevant to the pipe bomber story. You guys are starting to see this, maybe if you pay attention to this podcast. When we start talking about the J6 pipe bomb story, all kinds of interesting things happen. My friends get fired. That's interesting. Steve Baker was removed from the Blaze. They start a disinformation campaign about him because you can't have someone who holds on to credibility. This is like the same thing that I told you about Joe Kent. It's the same thing that I experienced myself. Immediately, when you start challenging or pushing something that is contrary to the what we'll call mainstream narrative or the accepted and acceptable narrative. There's like a left and right boundaries of what you're allowed to question. And when you decide to push up against it, you become the problem. It's not the story that doesn't line up, and it's not the government, which has basically lied to us about a lot of things for a long time. And it's not just like one group. There's all kinds of competing groups inside the government that are all trying to accomplish their goals. But as agencies defend their own work, if you get on the wrong side of it, it comes back on you. And what they immediately want to do is disgrace your credibility. All right, let me just address this. Our chat is going nuts on this. Atomic Dog is responsible for the Alex Jones clip. I appreciate you calling it to my attention. And yeah, I just ripped it. I ripped it and I used it shamelessly, but I will give credit where credit's due. So thank you for that. Okay. Here is one of the people that you don't know the name of. This is kind of how this works out. There's almost always people that are working in the background against the interests of, let's say, truth, against the interests of people that are the public face of information. And they just kind of quietly subvert what you're up to. This is Tyler Cardone or Cardone. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I don't particularly care. I'm going to show you. He's the chief executive officer at The Blaze. For those of you who think that it's run by Glenn Beck, this is your obvious answer that he's the guy who's running it. He looks like this, which is an interesting choice to look like that and publicly let people know that you run a media company and that you wear weird scarves and your hair looks like you just got kicked out of bed by your boyfriend and now you had to do the walk home wearing like somebody else's socks around your neck. In any case, that's Tyler's picture. Tyler is quietly running this like sort of media quiet smear campaign against my friend Steve Baker. And I'm not a big fan of how that works out. I don't like it when people say things that are untrue. The chat's saying homo. I know, I'm aware. I don't think he is per se, but that's just how it looks. The Blaze is pushing all kinds of this crazy information out to try to discredit the person that is Steve Baker. Like who he is, what they did, how his story has come to light, what they did to vet it and why they're scared and why they're not giving us the true, honest story. I'm going to go to his page real quick here. I'm going to pull this up because this one of the jobs that I do on this podcast, whether you guys like it or not, in addition to giving you bad news in a good way without laughing hysterically, like the sheriff of Rottingham, is that I try to combat narratives on behalf of people that I know are operating in good faith. I know Steve Baker's operating in good faith. I've queried him so many times. We have so many conversations behind the scenes that you guys don't see. I've known about most of the stories that he's been releasing for weeks and months before. I know the background and the amount of time he put into them and the stuff that they're not disclosing. What I also see is the concentrated effort of people that are, we'll say, part of the former agents group, which we call the FAGs, the FAGs. The former agents group, which are former FBI, I don't know what they like. They're retired FBI guys that think that because they have quote unquote training and experience, even though they've been away from the agency forever, even though they have zero access to the information, they don't have any access to the interviews. They've never done any actual individual research on their own. They've spent zero time looking at the footage in totality. They have no contacts that are giving them anything valuable. Those people are hell-bent on debunking the narrative that the government might operate corruptly. And the sad thing is we got this the other day, Megyn Kelly is not going to run the story that in the interview she did with Steve Baker. If you guys don't realize that's coming right now, it should be a major wake-up call to you. I told you it was probably the first and only time I'd recommend the Megyn Kelly show. I can now go back to my previous position, which is that Megyn Kelly is the same information op that everybody else is. She's chasing audience. She has no credibility with me. I think she's a shill. I think she saw what Tucker was doing and thought I can get some of that too. She saw what Candace Owens was doing and said, I can be controversial too. That's not the way that I operate here. I just operate on the things that I see that make sense. I don't have to answer to anybody. And if the audience leaves, so be it. Honest to God, I would, if I no longer had a podcast to show up to every morning and there was nobody else here, then that'd be fine. I would find something else to do. It might actually increase my mental health if I had to guess. This bit is Steve Baker showing, and yes, he's got internal memos coming from this guy, Tyler Cardone, who has gotten rid of the former president, which is a guy named Gaston Mooney. All the people that basically had all the cowardice, that were taking the phone calls from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, those people, they're jumping ship like rats on a burning vessel, you know, that's coming down to the waterline. Steve says, I wasn't fired for the reason that the Blaze put out, and this is an effort to cover their ass. I never refused to submit my work to editorial or legal review. That's what the line is that's going out there, that he somehow refused to let his work be evaluated. Guys, if you don't understand how media works, if you're a writer, then you write the story, you send it to an editor, the editor goes back and checks into whether or not, you know, they have any questions about the grammar, whether they have any questions on the fact basis. Then they submit it to legal review in the case of the Blaze, and they have several layers of legal review. And then after legal says, yes, we think that your evidence backs what you're saying and that you're arguing in good faith and you're operating fairly in a journalistic space and that you're safe in publishing this, then there's actually sometimes an additional layer which comes from the executive suite in this case. And these guys got out and the executives were reading about whether or not they were going to publish the story about Shawnee Kirkhoff, because it's a major allegation to say that the federal government helped execute a coup against the American people and then attacked those who had questions about what that looked like and made sure that there was no dissent during the 4 years of the Biden era, and that if you were on the dissenting side, that you basically had to worry about whether or not you were going to be arrested, which is what J6 turned into. However it was started and however it went down, that's what it turned into. I'm going to show you the screenshot, which is right here on the screen right now. This is coming from the CEO of The Blaze saying, I'm sure as most of you have heard, Steve Baker's employment at Blaze Media was terminated on Wednesday morning. That's last week. A lot of noise about this right now on X. I wanted to clear up any confusion. No, Steve was not terminated for his reporting on the January 6th pipe bomb story. Well, to be fair, he was actually terminated because he wouldn't take down the fact that he didn't retract his own article and that he stands by his own work. It's kind of a big difference. All right. They said the editorial policies and processes enable Blaze and every other news organization to ensure quality control. Steve's recent refusal to submit his journalistic work product for editorial and pre-publication legal review made his continued employment at The Blaze impossible. Joe Hanneman resigned. He's going to join Steve Baker. We wish them the very best. Here's where it really comes down to. If any of you have contributed any money to The Blaze, now's the time to stop. We saw this from Digit Isosceles the other day online, and I think it's a great sentiment. Whatever you were going to be making in payment to Torch, which is Glenn Beck, or to Blaze, you can turn around and just support the guys that are doing independent work. And here's the broader thought for you. The entire point of independent media was that you could get different thoughts, that you could get conflicting viewpoints, that you could have people say, I agree with you on principle in this aspect, but the way that I see it applied to this problem is different. And so therefore, I don't just go along with it. But what you'll really see is this, and this is something that many of you have probably witnessed already. What's the point of having a quote unquote independent media if they cannot operate independently? This is the same idea as me saying, what's the point of FU money if you don't know when to say FU? This was my problem with Dan Bongino at the FBI. What is the point of having enough money that they cannot cancel you and it have any meaningful impact if they actually can cancel you because you're worried about the impact? And The Blaze is in that category right now, and Megyn Kelly is in that category right now, and anybody that chases audience and is afraid of doing journalistic work that may in fact conflict with what the base or what the people are comfortable with. If your media organization is entirely dedicated to which way is the wind blowing, put your finger in the air, lick it, and then say, oh, the wind is blowing in from the east. That's the way that we're going to set our sails. We're going to sail towards the east. Then you're not independent. And you actually don't add any value. What you are is you're just a parrot. You're a feeder of the mainstream media. For all of the people that made hay calling out Fox News for being the establishment, which it is when the Republicans are in power, these same people will mimic everything they say. And that should be a big warning to you. There's tons of money in placating the MAGA people who want to stay asleep, who do not want real information. They want to feel good. They want the bad news ignored. They don't want it in a good way. They don't want it in a funny way. There's a lot of people in this country, I would say probably an actual majority at this point, who are looking for feed me confirmation bias, make me feel good about the thing that I already thought, and don't challenge me with any information that's going to go against what I thought. That is the premise of where Blaze is at right now. That's where all of these people do once they get a certain amount of success. They always say that money changes you, and I think it really does. When you get a certain amount of money, what it should do is make you say, I have 0 Fs to give, and I'm going to do whatever makes sense. And I think Tucker Carlson is closer to that than not, for whatever it's worth. And then there's what Glenn Beck's doing. I'm going to show you. Glenn Beck is going to make the argument, not that the conflict in Iran was correct, and not that you need to support it because there's a moral or a just cause or reason. Glenn Beck says that if you don't support it, then we're going to lose. and that a divided home front equals loss in something that most people, I would say, don't really want to be part of in the first place. I'm pretty confident Democrats didn't want to have another war. I'm fairly confident that a huge chunk of the MAGA base did not want another war. So if you're on the extreme right of like, I cheer on whatever it is my guy says, I'm in the tribal personality over principle sort of camp, then Glenn Beck's your guy. And he's saying it right here.
What is going to stop us from beating Iran? Of all places.
Of all places?
There's one thing. It'll stop us. It'll stop us dead in our tracks. We are guaranteed to lose because of one thing. What is that one thing that would cause us to lose?
Being in the moral wrong and having God side against us. No?
The American people.
Oh, it's your fault.
That's it.
It's your fault.
There's nothing that's going to stop this military. There's nothing that's going to make sure that's going to stop the Strait of Hormuz from being open. Nothing.
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 Except
you.
Us.
Yeah. It's your fault.
The Iranians are not going to push us back.
So Glenn Beck never served in the military. Glenn Beck doesn't know what it's like to be in the military. And as someone who is enlisted and worked around guys that are currently in special operations right now, I'll just tell you this. I had no idea what the public thought. I gave zero shits about what the public thought. I read no news. And I was an intelligent, well-educated, at least relatively speaking, capable of reading, but I just didn't care. It wasn't important to me. My job was right in front of my face. My job was usually like the state of Texas coming up and down as I was doing push-ups, or we were training for medical and trying to stop bleeds and learning how to control aircraft. Like I had nothing to do with the American people's sentiment about whether or not the war on terror made any sense. Imagine injecting yourself so aggressively into the space that you are Glenn Beck telling the American people who listen, your real job as an American is to support your government, including when they may in fact be wrong. That's a wild claim. Like, what's the difference between you and Fox News then? Because I've seen what Fox News said. They platform people like Mark Levin, who told you that they know the heart of the president and he makes the best decisions and therefore you have to trust him. It's the same idea. Glenn Beck's giving you the same thing.
The Iranians are not going to suddenly get an upper hand militarily. It will be us.
Just to be clear, we were in Afghanistan for 20 years. I don't think the Afghans had the upper hand, and yet it took them 9 seconds after we pulled back just a little bit of power, and they took the entire country back. How is it that the United States military, which, by the way, is an incredible machine, and the people who work in it are awesome? Some of them are shitbags too, for whatever it's worth, just to be totally clear. Like being a veteran, being in the military doesn't make you a hero. But the capabilities of the U.S. military are wild and truly, truly capable. And yet, it turns out, when you're trying to execute a people on their own land, they might take it personally. It very much reminds me of this little moment that Russell Crowe has with one of his generals in the movie Gladiator. And I can always think of it because my buddies and I talked about it while we were in the military. A people should know when they're conquered. And the question is, would you, as a regular person, maybe you're a veteran listening to this, would you know if you were supposed to be conquered? Would you know if you're on the other side and the Glenn Beck, a fill-in-the-blank enemy that wants to come in and take over America, says that there's no chance that you can win? Would that stop you from fighting with everything you have? I'm going to suggest no. I'm going to suggest that if you blow up a school in Austin, Texas, that's full of girls, like if you blew up a Catholic girls' school down the street from me, whoever's involved with that, you've become my lifelong enemy to whatever I have. That doesn't mean that they're the right. Doesn't mean their country is good. Doesn't mean the leadership of the country is good. It just means that regular people look at that and go, maybe you're the baddie. That's not an acceptable way to go about things. And maybe when there's this major history of setting up ceasefires and having some sort of agreement with the power that's coming in. I mean, I just look at it from the other side. Like, I don't think the Iranians are good, and I honestly don't care that much about what happens in the Middle East at all. But what I can say is I can also do the basic empathy of, if somebody did that to me, I'll hold up the mirror. If you did that to my country, I don't think I'm going to let it go. Interestingly enough, this is not the first time. We're dealing right now with the story of what happened in Iran. I'm actually going to play you a catch up on that, and then I'll play you that this is not new. The big story is that there was a peace deal, came up on the deadline on Tuesday. Yesterday we talked about it. There's a ceasefire, but what do we get out of it? Basically what we already had, and maybe a worse deal than we started. And then that wasn't good enough for the Israelis. Not the Jews, by the way, the Israelis. I'm going to play a couple more seconds of Glenn Beck just for funsies. We'll play this out as far as it can go. I just want to keep showing you that there's no distance between quote unquote independent media and mainstream media when they have enough money to actually do the production that you see in the studio in front of you there. If you see Glenn Beck surrounded by monitors, basically if they have enough money to be able to make it worth their time, they're going to chase mainstream audience. And that's why Steve Baker is a threat. That's why what we're doing here is threatening. It's the reason why the dildo meme team, whatever they're called, run by Brendan Warlord or whatever he calls himself, that dude, they want to make memes about me and Joe Kent. The reason why Joe Kent is a problem is because he has the experience, he has the background, and he has the articulation to say, listen, what you're saying is not entirely correct. And I'm not going to conflate nonsense about anti-Semitism. I'm telling you that there's a geopolitical force out there called Israel that's doing things that actually are not in the benefits of this country, which is what we all kind of signed up to serve. So he's got a problem with that. Glenn Beck does not. Your job is to support the regime. It's just worth knowing.
Because somehow or another, it's not that we don't want war. That's not enough. I understand not wanting war. I get that.
But you need to want war, obviously.
We are in a place now where a lot of Americans don't want us to win.
Nobody wants that, by the way. That is not a thing. That is the claim, though. So I've seen this propaganda from Fox. I've seen the propaganda out on social media, and now I'm hearing it from Glenn Beck as well. It's this. Nobody says they don't want America to win, but the idea that you don't want America to be there at all, they've conflated that in the same way they've conflated all these other things. It's a straw man for whatever it's worth, or a red herring. Take your pick. They've either deliberately weakened a position and they're making you fight against a position that you don't hold. Hey, why don't you want America to win? It's like, I always want America to win. I just want America not to be there, so we shouldn't even be in the question of whether or not we're winning. That's not hard. How hard is that for you? It's a logical fallacy. The argument is weak. It's juvenile. It's the same kind of thing that you have with an emotional boyfriend or girlfriend before you learn how to actually have an adult argument with somebody. There's no facts involved in that. I've predetermined that you don't want the thing that you would obviously be a bad person if you didn't want. So I'm going to point you that way. I'm going to paint you into that, and then I'm going to argue against something that you don't say. And you're like, well, I just don't do that. That's not how I do it. That's a little heavy. So let's take a little laugh at this for a second, shall we? I wanted to sum up the entirety of what's gone on so far as I can tell. This is the war summed up in 75 seconds, the war in Iran. And I think you guys will appreciate this. I think this is a pretty good encapsulation. There's a few things that are missing, but mostly this is the story.
All right. I'm not sure why we're all still having trouble with this. Let's try it again from the top. This is a victory for the U.S. because our goal from day one was for Iran to open the strait that didn't close till after we attacked, which was completely controlled by their military we had total dominance over. And it was a waterway that we could have taken over, but instead asked for help that we didn't need, but we'll remember that our allies did not give us, all because of the negotiating power of a FIFA Peace Prize recipient's threat to annihilate a civilization in order to liberate them from a regime that changed, which was not our goal, but we will take credit for, from an old man who hates us to his younger son who hates us for those reasons and that we killed his father. And while it is not clear the status of Iran's nuclear capabilities that we obliterated last year, but were going to be a problem in 2 weeks, one thing is for sure. They now have more money and control of the strait than they had when they made the old deal that we ended because it was terrible. Now, I think that is enough about authoritarian propagandistic regimes. Does anybody have any questions about the Trump Library golden statue?
Got it?
All right. I'm not sure why we're all still having trouble.
I don't know why we're having trouble. That seems clear as mud, as they say. It's pretty funny. That's parody. That's satire, right? They're doing a funny little bit. That guy is doing a bit on his TikTok. And he's pointing out the illogical premise of everything that we've been told. We're not supposed to actually remember things that happened a month ago. Did we not have a Secretary of State and a Speaker of the House and a president come out and say that the reason that we needed to go into war in the first place was multifold. One of them was the nuclear missiles that we apparently had already, or the nuclear material that we'd already destroyed, but we hadn't destroyed, but we'd obliterated it. It was the most impressive success that ever been done. Nobody's ever thinking anything so impressive, and yet it actually wasn't effective for some reason. That's problematic. Unless that wasn't true. As he said, we obliterated it last year, but they were about to get a nuclear weapon system in 2 weeks, so we got to deal with that. The second piece was about short-range ballistic missiles. I'm not hearing any talking about the ballistic capabilities. What is striking forward and backward? Apparently, it's short-range ballistic missiles that we have destroyed, but we haven't destroyed. And then we weren't doing a regime change, but it just happened, right? The guy just sums up all of these things. We're dominating their military, but their military still exists. Like, who are we fighting then? And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just saying that the information we're getting is garbage. And the answer from mainstream sources is you are required to support the regime because now we're in a time of war. Do you want America to win or not? My answer to you is real simple. Yeah, I wanted America to win. And it looked like this. This was a win. Seal the border. Get rid of all the people that came here illegally. End inflation. Reduce the inflated currency and make America affordable again. Make America the dominant energy producer so it doesn't matter what happens in the Middle East. Stop getting rid of our capabilities in manufacturing and onshore logistics, whether it be for supply chain, whether it be for the manufacturing processes, whether it be for chemicals that are required to be here. Our pharmaceutical industry, which does actually add value, obviously. How about tax cuts? How about you start from, it's my money first, and you have to justify if you want to get it? You know, like making America great. How about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? How about not supporting FISA 702? How about not supporting wireless and warrant-free tapping of our cell phones, like we talked about yesterday with ICE? How about basic freedoms? Like you're allowed to have dissent in this country. You're allowed to be hateful and bigoted, it turns out. Instead of telling me that you're going to make laws about anti-Semitism, how about you just say America is a place where all ideas are allowed to be discussed and we make fun of and we destroy the bad arguments instead of just making more shitty arguments? How about freedom of religion for actual Christians, which are the dominant culture? How about you defend the bacon cheeseburger nationalists who just want to have bacon and own a gun? How about all those things? How about you do the thing that you said that you weren't going to have any wars, you were actually going to restore peace? I don't think bombing is going to get it done. That's just me. Call me crazy. Let's keep going, shall we? How about we do things like, I don't know, Republicans used to claim, where small government is the answer. So instead of trying to solve problems by creating a new governmental agency, which, by the way, Donald Trump is just as guilty as anybody else, how about CISA? Do you remember CISA? The cognitive, what are they called? The Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency? That one, where they say security in the name twice? Where they thought that your brain, as reported by Tracy Beans the first time, that your gray matter is actually part of the cognitive infrastructure that the federal government is responsible for? Yeah, that came in under Donald Trump. How about stop solving government problems with government instead of just like removing it? How about small government as the answer? Wouldn't that be reasonable? What about stop the migrant crime epidemic? How about we just stop having these people come in and then you get rid of the people there? That's actually part of number 2. Rebuild the American cities. I'm not sure the federal government has any business in that. Strengthen and modernize the military so we don't have to send it to Iran for no particular reason. How about we make things cheaper, faster, and smarter? Because apparently we're fighting an Iranian force that is using completely asymmetric spending, where their $20,000 drones are costing us millions to intercept. You know, like stuff that makes sense. There's a whole lot on here that would make easy sense. And the last one is unite the country by bringing record and new levels of success. Have we done that? Are you guys feeling united yet? Glenn Beck just told you have to support the ship no matter which way it goes. It's so dumb. It's transparently awful to be able to make these claims. And it makes me sad because these people had an opportunity and theoretically they have an independent voice and they can't do it. If you like the channel, give us a like over on Rumble and on YouTube. And if you don't like the channel, give us a comment and tell me why. I don't mind either way. Subscribe to the channel wherever you're at if you guys want to hear some conflicting points of view that don't just run along with the mainstream and or quote unquote fake independent media. Nobody pays us what to do here for whatever it's worth. There's no Russian money. There's no Michael Flynn Catholic money. One of the big things that dropped over the last couple of days was a discovery that I had been sponsored by Catholic Vote, which those of you who've been part of the program realize that I actually promoted them almost every day, if not every day. Eternally grateful for the work that they did with us to help this podcast launch. They were the training wheels that allowed me to launch on my own. And apparently that was a revelation to people, that this non-governmental agency, Catholic Vote, which I helped raise funds for and I promoted regularly. Apparently, there was the big scandal is that Catholics were looking out for a Catholic father who exposed that the FBI was going after Catholics. And then I platformed a bunch of Catholics who were specifically being targeted by our government as a former FBI agent. So there's that. Guys, you may hear an ad from Spotify as well. That's on the audio platforms. Got another message yesterday. I think it was from Babs the Ice Queen. Am I saying that right? I think so. Who said, I used to do all the other platforms. I used to be on Apple, and now I'm watching go on Spotify, and I can't believe I waited this long. So anyway, if you're thinking of making a change, if you don't consume podcasts on Spotify, I don't get any extra money for it. It doesn't matter to me that way. I just think it's a better product. So allow that to be something that you consider as you guys continue on. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on. I got a whole bunch of this stuff. Propaganda. This one's really good. Glenn Beck's doing propaganda. Everyone's promoting this. I actually think the story is not nearly as much like what just happened, other than we got a ceasefire, and then 5 seconds later we had bombs coming in from Israel. This is not the first time that happened. I'm going to play you kind of a throwback from last year when that was rolling. This is Batya Ungar Sargon, which, by the way, is a wild name. As someone who grew up around media, and I did, okay, my father was in media. He was the news director of KCBS in San Francisco when I was born. I was around media people all the time. When you had an unpronounceable name, like, for example, Usalak, nobody knew what that was. Then you changed it and you made it accessible and you made it like Stevenson or McCormick. People took on nom de plumes. In fact, my dad, I think, used to go by the name Charles Brown when he was doing news, when he was younger, if my memory serves. He was Charles Brown because Seraphin is too complicated for people to mentally picture. The fact that we live in a time when Batya Ungar Sargon can blatantly do like this sort of pornographic propaganda. It's a strange time. This would have never flown historically. It kind of tells you where the status of propaganda is. So let's do this. This woman, who clearly represents all the MAGA people, as far as I can tell, all the MAGA people that I've ever met, the people that like work with their hands, that wanted that Agenda 47, the people that are just regular conservatives, their husbands and their wives, they are parents, they have kids, they go to church on Sunday, they work hard and they are trying to make ends meet, not on like a very large salary. They're trying to just thread the needle and make it work for them. Not a single one of them was named Batya or Ungar or Sargon. Not one of them. Here she is telling you that Donald Trump has never been wrong about the MAGA base. You guys tell me if that's the case. This is a hell of a thing to do. And by the way, the Epstein files don't matter to anybody. That's why Don Jr. and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and all the people that were walking around saying that people should not be abusing young women and that pedophiles should go in the wood chipper, all that stuff, that actually never happened. Just drop that out of your mind because in reality, Donald Trump is the king of the MAGA things as long as we keep saying it over and over again. Remember, the only way that we lose is if you don't support whatever's going on.
Has Trump ever been wrong about his base? He's not.
Yeah. I mean, the Epstein files.
Wrong.
Because he was talking about not releasing them, and then he called the people in the MAGA base stupid. There was that fallout.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Jeffrey Epstein. This is another thing that the podcast world was obsessed with because, again, 2 billion Muslims would love to hear about Jews being pedophiles, but it was nothing. There's nothing in the files to implicate anybody else of any criminal wrongdoing except Jeffrey Epstein, which Trump knew.
What about our nonce? What's
Prince Andrew?
Alleged nonce. What about Prince Andrew?
Oh, selling secrets. But you see how the media tried to make it sound like that the crime there was like a sex crime, but it wasn't, right?
Yeah, we can't really have him be in jail or in prison for a sex crime. We have to arrest him because of state secrets. Are you guys really hearing that stuff? Do you think that somehow he was only involved in the one thing there? I mean, that's completely illogical to me. You think that the United States and the UK government did not recognize what Prince Andrew was doing? You think they didn't have technical coverage on his phones, that they didn't have people that were checking in on all of his contacts and investigating them? Who's selling this slop? And more importantly, who's buying this slop? Who thought that this was going to fly? And you can say that the Epstein files were a complete hoax. There's nothing in there, even though the story will not go away. And we are now like 16 months into this administration. Maybe these people just have never met anybody. I guarantee you, go walk on the street and be like, hey, do you care about like elite pedophiles? They'd be like, what? You'd be like, like rich people that are Prince Andrew or other people who are world leaders in other countries getting away with hurting kids. They'd be like, oh, that's terrible. You'd be like, do you know who Jeffrey Epstein is? And they'd be like, oh, yeah. I heard that guy was like, didn't he die? Yeah, he did. Do you think that we should have truth and transparency about whatever the hell he was involved in? Find me the people that say that doesn't matter. I don't even care about the gas being high. Short-term pain equals long-term gain. We've always been at war with Iran. Find me those people in real life, please.
He's accused of giving secrets to him, right?
But he's also in a photo with like 17-year-old girls.
But that's not why he was arrested.
No, I'm not talking about arrest.
Listen, the government's only allowed to arrest you for the things that are true. Brian Cole Jr. has some questions.
Arrested. I think there is the things you can criminally prosecute someone for, and then there's like,
we'll see.
Why are all these people on that island?
Because rich people like to hang out with rich people.
Guys, it's as simple as that, okay? Rich people, they just do rich people things. And you wouldn't even understand it as a non-rich person. So obviously, it was just about state secrets.
And hookers.
But if they...
Rich people like to hang out with rich people and hookers. That might be the line of the show.
Weren't underage. There's no crime.
There's no
like
crime.
The whole,
Do we know they weren't
Why
underage?
is she so emotional?
Know that show me again. There's 3 million documents have been released.
That's only half of the ones that are there.
Okay.
So why haven't the other 3 million been?
And where are all the counterintelligence investigations that should be part of this? Which, by the way, they're just going to hide behind the thing we talked about yesterday, national security. Had a comment on Spotify. I'm sorry, I don't remember who made it, but it's a good comment. And the answer was that there are 2 things that are the catch-all cover for law enforcement in this country. One is national security, and the other is officer safety. You can do anything for officer safety. You can do anything when it comes to national security. That sounds like it's closer to true than not. The officer safety thing, I think there's an argument to be made, but that doesn't mean that you should be able to run over people's civil liberties. And I do think that it's a real danger. Unfortunately, the job of law enforcement is supposed to be dangerous. Like it's supposed to be. That's why you signed up. That's why it's sexy. That's why it's cool. It's like you're going to have a badge. You're going to have a gun. You're going to have body armor. You're going to have gear because danger comes your way and you're going to have to deal with it. We're going to try to mitigate the threat to you. But at the end of the day, you're putting yourself in harm's way, in theory, right? And you don't get paid high for it. People seek it out. It's a desirable job because of the credibility, because of the authority, because of the responsibility that's placed on you, because of that sort of masculine instinct to be a protector. Some people are driven and called to it. I felt like I was. That doesn't mean you should be able to run over people's rights just because you don't want to be in danger. It's like danger was kind of built in. I know a lot of guys that from my childhood growing up, if you'd ask them, what do you want? Boring safety or dangerous excitement? They'd be like, dangerous excitement. Obviously, that's why I'm riding with no helmet and I'm holding on to the front of the handlebars and I have no feet on the pedals. I'm trying to stand on the top of my bike. And you're like, yeah, that's really dumb. And they're like, I know. It's exciting. Anything could happen. I could lose all my teeth. Young men, a certain type of young men, testosterone driven, they want to do dangerous stuff, period. Okay. I'm going to do a quick story over here. Let's keep going through. There's more on this propaganda thing, and I'm going to circle back to it because there was a video that was released with a guy named Jordan Sachtel, who apparently is doing Israeli propaganda in the United States and is caught on hidden camera. This is one of the better uses of hidden camera. It's not like, I'm going to try to lure you into this date. It's someone who's basically propositioning a business deal and getting the specifics on what that would look like. And it's fairly interesting, I think. Let's see, that's some propaganda too. I got a whole bunch of propaganda. Let me go to the actual updates on what we're seeing here. Weird. I love it when I click on one of my websites and I just get like audio out of nowhere. Okay, we're gonna go to, here it is, the ceasefire problem. And it looks like this. Israel's attack devastate Beirut and threaten the U.S.-Iranian ceasefire. This is what was the story from yesterday afternoon, because the story from yesterday morning was, it's all over. The war is done. We won. Claim victory, just like I played you in that sort of lampooning clip. Mounting global condemnation of Israel on Thursday was matched by confusion over whether Lebanon was part of the truce deal that was agreed to by Donald Trump, and apparently probably was. Again, I think we've got a little clip here where that discussion was being done. I've got a clip from, of all places, from Al Jazeera. This is one of the reasons why I go to contrasting news sources. I want to find people who I would otherwise not agree with, who I know have a different lean, And they're sharing information that may not be palatable to the Glenn Beck types, to the Dan Bongino, to whatever Steve Bannon, the mainstream podcast that basically all just kind of edge around what Fox News says in the official narrative. I want to find out what people say that are in disagreement to my own, potential allies. Here's what it sounds like.
Well, Iran was clear that a ceasefire was conditional on it being applied across the region. Pakistan explicitly said that it had to include Lebanon. Israel subsequently said that it did not include Lebanon. And the defense minister said just a short while ago that they will continue attacking what they call Hezbollah's military infrastructure across Lebanon. Just a short while ago, European leaders and Canada put out a statement saying that the ceasefire should be upheld and that it should include Lebanon. Now, in October 2024, just before the last ceasefire, Israel launched an unprecedented attack of great intensity just before the ceasefire came in. So we're waiting, of course, to find out if Israel will continue with its military operations and its invasion in Lebanon, as it has said it will, or if there will be sufficient international pressure to bring this to a pause.
Forget international pressure. How about United States pressure? At what point are we going to lean on these people and say, hey, by the way, we made a deal and you're sticking to it. You're the junior partner in this. This is an argument that was being made the other day by Joe Kent, who's been vocal about this, who resigned over this very specific issue. Here's why I take Joe Kent's word over, let's say, I don't know, some shill influencer lawyer who cannot bench press the bar. Joe Kent had 11 combat tours in the pointy end of things. He worked for a tier 1 special mission unit that used intelligence and leveraged individual operators to do things like color revolutions when he was at TF Orange. That's pretty intense. And then he had director level access to intelligence in the United States intelligence community, as well as being the chief of staff or the deputy chief of staff for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's pretty high level read-ins. So when that person says, hey, maybe this is not what's going on and we should listen to that guy over some shill lawyer that gets paid by Mike Davis. That's just me. Here's the story from NBC News. Israel's intense bombardment left Lebanon to confront new devastation Thursday, as the U.S. allies' assault on Lebanon imperiled the fragile ceasefire with Iran. The mounting global condemnation of Israel was matched by confusion over whether or not Lebanon was part of the truce deal agreed to by Donald Trump. It sounds like it was. In the capital, Beirut, the deadliest day of the current Israeli campaign saw rescue workers search the rubble overnight as stunned civilians reeled from the surprise attacks. 25-year-old so-and-so nurse at the American University Hospital in Beirut said he was haunted by what he witnessed after seeing the Israeli strikes, which killed nearly 200 people. The smell, the smoke, you can barely see, the fire, the sound of screams, all destruction. It's like a Hollywood movie. At the hospital, he said, we didn't stop receiving rescued and dead people all night. He said babies were arriving at the facility without parents, traumatized and crying. All of that stuff is an emotional heartstring. All of that is the reality of how awful all this stuff is. If only there was some sort of precedent where you could predict how people might react, like prior performance, and then you'd see what they would do in the current situation. This clip is from July of last year during the so-called 12-day war, which is going to be the content discussed in the next clip. This is Donald Trump, who was none too happy with either side, if you recall, including the Israelis. And for some reason, they always get a little pass. This is troubling and should be problematic for people.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. When I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
I saw Enrique Tarrio post that the other day. I think it was yesterday. And I was like, I know I've seen that before. That's not about this. Although it sounds like it's just about this, doesn't it? Said a different way.
Don't stick your dick in a light socket or a beehive.
We're dealing with people that are are clearly not operating in good faith. Donald Trump was pissed, rightly so. So why did he get talked into doing this other one? Well, if you read the New York Times story that I gave you guys access to yesterday, and I put it up, the behind the paywall version of it, it sounds like the entire cabinet was like sketchy on that at best. They were not thrilled about it. So when you hear people like Joe Kent try to make the argument like, hey, maybe this is not where we ought to be, and the alternative is mainstream media adjacent shills like Will Chamberlain. Will works for Mike Davis at the Article 3 Project. He's an attorney. Let me see if I can pull up this great story from Fox Business, just for you guys to be aware. We covered the story of Mike Davis in The Economist the other day, that he apparently is accepting, this is allegations, he's accepting $300,000 a month in lobbying fees to the Department of Justice, which you're not supposed to be able to lobby. I don't know why you're allowed to lobby DOJ, and that there's $1 million payoff if his fighting against antitrust goes through and some mergers are allowed to happen. These are multi-billion-dollar corporation mergers. And if he's able to clear the path through DOJ with his friendships, that he gets paid, what, $5 million a year in fees, maybe more, and $1 million payoff bonus? Yuck. Here he is writing this. You guys want to know how adjacent the quote-unquote independent media is? It looks like this. Mike Davis, this is the writer of this piece. It's an opinion piece, but he's doing it at Fox Business as though it holds legitimacy. Mike Davis, Trump's man at the Federal Trade Commission, delivers major wins. Just reading who says it, I'm going to go in direct opposition because I look at the source and I go, that ain't it. 1 year into his tenure, and despite what his feckless critics claim, this is how you do like real journalism. President Trump's Federal Trade Commission chairman, Andrew Ferguson, is delivering monumental wins for the competition and for consumers. That just tells me that we're getting screwed. Just for whatever it's worth, I just set myself in direct opposition to people who I know to lie. I've known Ferguson for years. That's a character indictment for me. He's a friend and a former colleague and the type of fighter that Donald Trump promised he would put in charge in the administrative state. No, he actually promised he would put people like Tulsi Gabbard. He put people in that were going to be hated by the folks because they were going to try to eliminate the people that were problematic. He's not the typical Washington bureaucrat. He's not interested in academic exercises. He's interested in results. In 1 year, he's returned $3.2 billion to consumers. You guys remember all that money you received? Me neither. Ferguson is delivering on Trump's agenda. Anyway, this is what propaganda looks like. And so you have Fox News running it. So impressive. Now let's go to one of the people that's paid by that guy, Mike Davis. This is Will Chamberlain. Again, not Wilt Chamberlain, that's somebody else. Here he is arguing. And the best part is I want you to watch the facial expressions of Joe Kent during this. If you're just listening, you're missing out on the facial expressions. He has these moments where it's kind of like when you're talking to a child. I have these moments when I'm talking to my 8-year-old. My 8-year-old is brilliant. She speaks like a late teenager. She's very, very smart. But she doesn't have a lot of knowledge because she has capabilities and processing. She's very intelligent. She has the intellectual horsepower, but she doesn't have the library to refer to. So she'll make some suppositions that are not correct regularly. And when she says something that logically would follow if you didn't know anything else, as a parent, you just kind of smirk a little bit. I see that smirk on Joe Kent's face quite a few times during this clip.
Withhold things from the Israelis, which we can do. The Israelis do have a modern air force, but they rely on us for a lot of the logistics, the refueling, in order to be able to reach into Iran. So we very much are in the driver's seat of what we.
Well, that's not true, Joe. That's just obviously false because we didn't help them with refueling.
No, it's 100% true. They can't reach into. They cannot reach into.
That's his face right there. See that smirk? I paused it for you. Will just said it's obviously not true because the 12-day war. One of these guys is an attorney that sits out there and fluffs up a guy named Mike Davis and works like trying to fundraise and pretend that they're doing some value for the American people in a quote unquote nonprofit. The other guy was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. The other guy was a director level member of the intelligence community in the middle of that 12-day war. Who do you think had better information? Just curious. And does he sound like he's trying to embarrass the president or any of the other things that people are saying? He's just sharing information. It's like, buddy, watch him say, I did this for a living. You know, it's the difference between somebody who's a spectator telling you how to actually shoot a free throw and a guy who's an NBA player who kind of smirks and says, thanks for your advice, guy. Thanks, kid. Maybe you don't have the background on this.
Israel, I've actually been in the military, man. I've been part of these operations.
Then explain how they did the 12-day war without refueling. right? If we weren't participating in the offensive operations,
we helped them out a good.
Struck the hell out of it.
We helped them out a good deal.
That to me, just my read on it listening, sounds like there's probably some classified intelligence he's walking, or some classified military operations that you can't disclose, and you would know that. You can't do it necessarily. You can't tell everybody everything you know just to win an argument. And it's a good time to try to bait somebody into giving up information that you're not allowed to. One of these guys knows what he's talking about. One of these guys wears glasses and runs around Washington, D.C. But this is kind of like what the mainstream effort is. And there, I looked out because I'm curious about people who disagree with me. I watched people that are on what we'll call the mainstream adjacent independent right. And they are all 100% saying, like, Will dominated him. He couldn't even answer the question. It's like, yeah, he probably couldn't, because the things he knows are not for public dissemination. But I'm going to take his word on it. I'm a skeptic, except when I understand why you might not be able to answer. You guys can do whatever you want on that. I'm just giving you the information that I believe. Here we go.
With logistics, they can't sustain operations without us. They wouldn't be able to continue to sustain operations all the way into Iran with conventional military forces in any meaningful way without our support. We have to pull that back. We also have to pull back their ability to go on the offense outside of their borders, because it's going to interfere with the peace that we're trying to achieve. Right now, we're paying for their defense, we're paying for the offense, and also in terms of our status in the region and our ability to keep commerce and oil flow going out of the Straits of Hormuz and the Middle East. All of that is being negatively affected by us listening to a foreign government. So we have to put Israel back in the junior partner role if we're going to accomplish our strategic
Why couldn't
objectives.
you persuade Pete Hegseth of any of this?
Well, I tried. So therefore,
and he didn't agree with you, and he has better intelligence than you. You weren't privy to any of this stuff. Like, you just don't know. That's why you're now on the outside doing podcasts instead of inside the administration trying to shape policy. You don't know.
Do you know how embarrassing it is? That's kind of a funny little freeze frame. That's so embarrassing to say that because somebody who, as if I was going to guess, I'm going to say Joe Kent is significantly more intelligent than Pete Hegseth. That doesn't have anything mean to say about Pete Hegseth. But Hegseth knows where his bread's buttered. He knows what his job is, and he's doing it. If I had to say who has principle over one, it's pretty clear who has principle. It's the person that's willing to do the thing that doesn't benefit you. There's no benefit to publicly saying, hey, I don't agree with what you guys are doing. You know what the benefit is? You get fired, like Steve Baker. You get maligned, like me or Steve Friend. You get publicly exercised from the so-called movement because you're saying there are principles. They are not related to the personality. I'm going to stand up and tell you what my principles are. You can choose to like them or not like them. It doesn't change what I'm going to do. You can't bend me to your will with financial pressure. You can't do it with political pressure. You can't do it by putting up memes or having people on podcasts try to say things that I'm not going to expose myself to. And by the way, I'm still not going to sell out the American secrets. I know what that looks like. I'm watching Joe do it. I'm just telling you, it feels very personal. That's as someone who doesn't really know Joe Kent. But I know men like Joe Kent. And I know what it takes to get into that situation. And I know what it's like to see the machine mobilize and point all their fire at you and try to discredit you from every angle. Behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, in the social media. It's all gross. Here's what Pete Hegseth would say.
Now we have a chance at real peace and a real deal. The War Department, for now, has done its part. We stand ready in the background to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term. And as everyone knows, nobody makes a better deal than President Trump.
Perfect. Perfect knob slobbery, well delivered, choreographed line. Donald Trump is the best. We need to make sure that we police up Iran. Nothing about the other people who are out there who said, oh, there's a ceasefire. Let's see if we can break that thing up and start sending missiles into Lebanon right now. You know, as Donald Trump said, 2 countries that don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's not like there's not historical precedent for what's being said. Here's where I think it gets really wild. The information op. Now, I wasn't sure I was going to do this, but I'll do this right now. Before we do, let me just say, if you guys want to support us, I'm going to show you something interesting that you won't see anywhere else. Rumble, like it. YouTube, like it. Subscribe either place. You may hear a Spotify ad. Let me tell you why I don't like what goes on when these people come after you. This happened yesterday. I took a phone call. I got an email. And I'll publish the email over on local so you guys can see it at kyleseraphin.com. I got an email from the New Mexico Department of Justice, which I have no dealings with. And it was a follow-up email to one that I got on Friday that I completely ignored because I just was like, I don't know what this is. I assumed somebody did something in my name. It was pretty obvious to me that that's what was going on. Somebody filed something with New Mexico. Yesterday, I got a notice that filing had been ignored, essentially. That they conducted some logical information or investigative activity and they moved on from it. Friday was the day that we had Steve Baker on this show. Friday was the day when we did Bobby Sauce, Steve Baker, and we talked about what? The pipe bomb case, the collapsing government narrative, the fact that I don't think that they're being honest operators. I don't even think my parents know this story yet. I shared this basically with my wife only. This is what happens if you challenge the government in your own space, if you challenge the mainstream narrative, if you point out, that Megyn Kelly and Glenn Beck are shills for some sort of garbage. This is what happens. I lead with the bottom line up front, and then I'm going to play you most of the important part of the call. This was a 5-minute call I had to the New Mexico Department of Justice yesterday. You never heard this before, I promise. Is it not playing now? Well, that doesn't help us. Stand by. That's weird. I wonder why not. That would be really good if the clip won't work. Oh my. All right, let me see if I can grab another version of it. Got another version. That's pretty exciting for me. I know that it's we'll get it, don't worry. Yeah, okay. So I can make it pull up on this. Let's see if we can do it now. Wow. Stand by, y'all. Let me just go ahead and convert this file. In fact, I'm going to convert this file live right now because I'm not going to promise you something that I'm not going to deliver. That is really interesting. Let me open up a file converter real quick and we'll do it in a different format. And I'm not going to give away what it is. Remind me later. Okay. This is pretty short, so it should just take a second. 20% converted. That might be one of my favorite things that happens every once in a while, but this is the first one where we actually can't even play the clip that I created. And okay, so it's converted. Stand by. For those of you who are listening, the show gets done live. Let's see what happens. Here we go.
Kyle, and I'm from Las Cruces. I want to share information about my wife Emily's cocaine addiction.
That's the entirety of it?
Yep, that's all I see. New Mexico Department of Justice, how can I help you?
Hello, ma'am. I got an email from your department, and it said that you were closing out a complaint that had been submitted, I guess, online. The only problem was I didn't submit any complaints, and I got a previous one saying that it had been filed. I'm curious if you could tell me what I supposedly filed so I can find out if I'm got something else going on, if somebody decided to start putting information into a system under my name.
Okay, so nothing pops up with that particular phone number.
Yeah, I've got a reference number, and it's related to my business email for whatever reason. It's NMDOJ-ITK India Tango Kilo, and then dash 2026 for this year, and then dash 04170.
I have, I do see you received an email today at info@Pile, SERAPHIN.com.
Correct, that's me. Yep.
Okay, so what I see is there was a contact us form submitted on Friday, April 3rd from, I'm guessing, you.
Not me.
My name is Kyle, and I'm from Las Cruces. I want to share information about my wife Emily's cocaine addiction.
That's the entirety of it?
Yep, that's all I see.
Can I get a copy of that sent to my email that you guys have so that I can file that with the FBI? I have had a number of threats on my life and my wife and some other things. So that's just interesting that somebody decided to use my public facing email and file that on you. Obviously, I don't live in Las Cruces anymore and they've got old information, but I'd like to take that.
Okay, what I would encourage you to do is file an IPRA, just so it comes in as a formal request from our office and you can see all
That's the important part. I'll post it over on Locals if you guys want to listen to it. It's not particularly interesting. That was me while I was at the gym, because that email came in while I'm out there running. I'm running on the freaking treadmill, keeping my heart rate up, doing the things that I need to do. The reason it sounds different is because I'm standing in a huge hallway wearing some earbuds that are not particularly expensive. And so the audio is not fantastic, but it's recorded from the phone. New Mexico's a one-party state. I'm a one-party state. I just recorded the call because I wanted you guys to see what happens. I wanted to know, what was it that somebody filed that didn't get any additional look? And they said that they weren't going to be able to investigate it. I've done the IPRA, which is their request for public information. We're going to find out. Hopefully we'll get access to the IP address that it got filed in. People want to come after my wife, make allegations on that. I showed you guys the other day when we were talking to Steve Baker that the exact same threats that were coming in on Shawnee Kirkhoff from the anonymous Russian emailer came into me. They said they were going to send my wife child pornography to her phone. They were going to ship drugs to my house. Pretty interesting. If you call out the main narrative, if you become problematic, then a bunch of anonymous cowards will do stuff like this to you. None of them will show up to your face. None of these people are going to challenge Joe Kent face to face, because when they do, they look like fools. It's the same story about the things I'm saying. The things that I know about, I know about. The things that I don't know about, I don't know about. Yesterday, I had a little fun exchange because we found out that our FBI director decided to fly in on Tuesday night to Nashville, and then he flew back out a couple hours later in the morning yesterday. And then the claim was, he was speaking at a really important conference, the Pharmacy and Illicit Drugs Summit in Nashville. And his girlfriend decided to get involved in the thing. And she's like, you can't even tell, but his name was on the list. First of all, if you're the director of the FBI and you're not headlining your speech that you give for 20 minutes, it looks like he did it last minute. And secondly, more importantly to me, when the FBI director's girl, who is his friend, decides to engage with me publicly, despite the fact that she claims that I've defamed her, decides to call in and get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views. It's going to be really hard to say that she was damaged reputationally by anything that I've said. She's willing to engage me directly. How is that possible? Sometimes the thing that I'm doing is not obvious to all of you, but I'm more than happy to let people expose themselves. It turns out you're a public figure if you want to engage in the public debate, and tens of thousands of people care what you have to say. Right? Don't people care about that? And does anybody think that we're not dealing in a world where the senior government executive is going to fly into the place where the girl who is his friend lives? You think that somehow has nothing to do with what he's doing? I'm going to actually show you guys a pretty classic little move in the intelligence community. I took a picture of it yesterday. Maybe I can pull this up on a screen over here. One sec. It's a Office of Inspector General report. These are actually pretty easy to get a hold of. They're all out there for search. But the basic move is, if you work in the government and you would like to, let's say, I don't know, go somewhere and you'd like the government to pay for it, it turns out senior executive service members of the FBI have been doing this for a really long time. I'm sure other agencies do too. They're just not my people. This is an investigative summary from the year 2025, number 86, out of the Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General. Remember, the problem is not doing what the machine says. It's calling out what the machine says. I told you guys a long time ago, the number one crime in the FBI is actually calling out the FBI and embarrassing the agency. Kash Patel's doing that right now. Here you go. This is the thing. Investigative summary. Findings of misconduct by a then FBI assistant director for misuse of positions and violations of DOJ travel policy. The Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General initiated an investigation after receiving an allegation that a then FBI assistant director and other employees traveled overseas on official travel at significant cost to the government for personal reasons rather than legitimate FBI interests. You know, kind of like what Kash Patel does every single day. Should we play the song too while we're doing this? That's fine. I'll just play that in the background. The OIG investigation found that then FBI assistant director wasted taxpayer funds and then used the public office for private gain, in violation of federal ethics guidelines, FBI policy. They went on a government-paid 13-day international trip to 2 countries for the purpose of visiting two of the assistant director's personal quote-unquote bucket list countries. Kind of like making a trip to your girl who is a friend in another state, even though she just flew away from you a few seconds ago. The assistant director participated in one-day meetings in one country, a morning of meetings in another country, and spent 4 days at a beach resort at the government's expense between the meetings in the two countries. The OIG also found that the assistant director's conduct violated several provisions of DOJ's policies. The assistant director then retired from the FBI prior to being contacted by OIG for an interview. When later contacted by OIG for the interview, the then former assistant director declined the interview. I'll post this, guys, if you want it. The OIG has the authority to compel testimony from current DOJ employees upon informing them of that their statements will not be used to incriminate them in a criminal proceeding, but it doesn't have the ability or the authority to compel or subpoena testimony from former department employees. It kind of reminds me of as long as you retire, you got away with it. Kind of like this.
I also don't care about the Epstein information. I don't care about those files. I think it's irrelevant. I don't care about those files. I think it's irrelevant. I think it's irrelevant. No one is going to be charged. Everyone got away with it. No one is going to be charged. Everyone got away with it. And I would much rather dig into January 6th. Much rather dig into.
Like that. You've got to no.
I just have never cared about it personally.
Because in the files you're going to find out the I know, but but I'm saying it's you'll get to the cover up of exactly what.
Unless you don't want to get to the cover up. By the way, the end of that story is exactly what you might think it is. The OIG has completed its investigation and provided its report to the FBI for any actions that it deems appropriate, and unless otherwise noted, OIG applies the preponderance of evidence standard to determine whether DOJ personnel have committed misconduct. The answer is nobody got charged. Everybody got away with it. Because that's how it works. It's the kind of like, oh, it's a one big club and you aren't in it. Doesn't matter if you're Will Chamberlain, doesn't matter if you're Julie Kelly, doesn't matter if you're part of the Epstein class, doesn't matter if you're a former or current senior executive or executive in the FBI. You can be the FBI director. You can get away with flying a private jet, which he claimed cost us $15,000 every single time that it took off. And he needed to do it for what? A 20-minute speech that nobody saw, probably to a near empty room of a bunch of chubby ladies. I saw the pictures from the event. And a last-minute invitation. Sir, they're going to call you out if you don't have some work to do. Got it. Book me a speech at whatever's going on. I'll go meet with the governor's convention. That's what he did. And then the girl who is a friend decided to engage with me on it, like a public figure who's debating a public problem with the public figure boyfriend, right? Boy who is her friend. Sometimes we can just draw these people out with their own words. And if you challenge it, you can expect to find that people are going to make phone calls, they're going to make filings, they're going to make allegations, there's going to be whisper campaigns, they're going to try to discredit you, they're going to go after the Steve Bakers, they're going to go after the Joe Kents, and they'll go after me as well. And I just see it, and I just go, this is the cost. None of this stuff happens if I keep my mouth shut and just go back to work. None of this happens if I just roll up my sleeve and say, yeah, give me the shot. I'm fine with it. None of this happens if I say, hey, by the way, I don't have a problem with finding out that the FBI is doing investigations into parents using counterterrorism resources, even though the Attorney General said that we wouldn't do that 5 days ago under oath. None of it happens if you don't call out the machine for what it does. You're totally fine. That's the safest thing to do, is just to keep going, put your head down, and act like you didn't just see evil. It's the best way to go about it, which is kind of embarrassing. All right, let me see if I've got any other things that I really wanted to cover on today's program. Oh, this is one last little version of it. This is also kind of interesting. A former Army employee has been charged with leaking classified information to a journalist. This story was like running around social media yesterday. This is obviously interesting to me as an FBI guy. Courtney Williams was named in a magazine article and a book that included details of her allegations of being harassed and retaliated against while working for a covert Army unit. Sounds like Delta, CAG, whatever they call it. A North Carolina Special Mission Unit. There's only so many. And interestingly enough, the FBI director took major credit for this. Was like making the laps, like, look what we did, like it's going to count. The information that was disclosed was from 2010 to 2016. So it's already at the very closest 10 years out of date. And the FBI did zero investigative work to uncover who it was. The journalist just reported the person's name as part of an open source Office of Inspector General report and an EEOC report. So everybody who looks at this goes like, well, see, this is the leak. That you look at that headline and you think it's probably the person that leaked whatever information that was going on about the 2 pilots that were behind enemy lines in Iran. That's not what's going on. This is a 10-year-old allegation to 15-year-old allegation about a woman who was reported in an open source publication. How embarrassing is that for them to actually claim that this is some big win? I wonder if there's a good Kash Patel quote in here. Courtney Williams, 40, of North Carolina, was arrested Tuesday, charged Wednesday with transmitting classified national defense information to individuals not authorized to receive it, including a journalist, held a top secret clearance in the military from 2010 to 2016. Now, your clearance and your NDAs don't go away just because you leave. There is a process to be able to clear them. That being said, if the things you're saying are actually being argued in a public forum, I would argue that it'd be pretty hard to say that this was not public material by that point. And the journalist who worked with this is making a counter case right now in the public. So I'm going to follow the story as best I can understand it. I don't have a vested interest in it. But what I do know is that the FBI is trying to claim, yeah, we go get leakers. Really? You get leakers from something that happened 10 years ago? I mean, it matters. But not like something that happened 5 seconds ago and not like something that's happening in real time. They are actually trying to pretend something that's not real. They're trying to conflate this as a victory against something. All right, the journalist who's not named in the court documents, but I have him. I'm following him now over on X. His name is Seth something or other. He wrote the book about, his name is Seth Harp. He wrote a book called The Fort Bragg Cartel, Drug Trafficking and Murder in the Special Forces, which was a really wild book. I haven't read it. I've read the summaries of it. I've listened to interviews of him talking about it. So the allegations and the claims that are going on in there and sort of what he was running with, it is actually kind of damning to the machine as well. So maybe we'll get him. Maybe he'll come and talk to us. That would be interesting. Criminal complaint says Williams was mentioned by name in both the book and the article by the same journalist. So let's just be clear. The investigative agency we spend $11 billion a year on, the FBI, they didn't like uncover a leaker. They read a freaking book and they read an article that was published publicly with somebody's name in it. Can we be serious about this for just a second? They need to have a leaker victory. And then Kash Patel went out and says, we're going to hold you accountable. Like, we're going to hold you if you do this thing. She actually said in her own messages with her mother, which they obviously intercepted, I might get arrested for disclosing classified information. Apparently Williams, who was the person quoted, was very concerned about the information that was published by the journalist, Seth Harp. This may be awful work by the journalist, by the way, in disclosing sources and not covering it up. This is one thing that is different between me, I think, and a lot of people that are running after a story. I will never burn my source. I will never burn people, even if I know more things, because I don't need to win the argument. It's the same thing you saw Joe Kent do. He probably knows a lot more about the United States military involvement in the 12-day war than has been previously disclosed. If I had to guess, a lot more. But he's not going to disclose it for a podcast victory because it's far better to do the right thing than it is to like get points in public. And I abide by the same code. And maybe, and I'm if Seth wants to come on this program and talk to us, I think that'd be really interesting because I'd like to hear the whole story, the book, and now this new iteration of it, which could very easily be a reprisal. It's not worth destroying somebody else. It's not worth me outing a friend or a friendly even, or someone who's just doing the right thing. Guys, if you recall, I never gave up the name of the people who were involved in giving us the Catholic memo, so-called Catholic memo. It was an Intel product. That person was fired. I still haven't shared his name. And the reason why is because he doesn't want it, even though he did something that was really heroic, I think, and paid dearly for it. Was forced to retire despite not wanting to. Got kicked out of the FBI, had all of his crap thrown out of his office. Like, I know all the details. I've got pictures of it, actually. But that's not what we do here. Because the person is still more important. That's what the principle is of this program. That and laughing. Okay, so I appreciate all of you guys that are watching. If you guys have not hit the like already, please do so. I'd appreciate if you would. Make sure you're supporting our sponsors by checking them out. You may hear this things from Spotify. Should we do some humor? I feel like we need to. I feel like we need some humor. And so let's see what kind of funny things I've pulled down for you in the last couple of days. My wife and I have been watching like reel videos, and we're just running through them and just seeing what's silly. And there's a lot of silly stuff out there in the world. This is one of my favorite guys. He's a former professional athlete turned comedian, and he's reminding me of who the enemy used to be. Because right now you see a lot of firing, quote unquote, people on the right. What I would say is that's people that are anti-establishment against the establishment. If you're in the Mike Davis camp, if you're in the Bannon camp, if you're in the Bongino camp, if you're part of the administration, if you're in the Saya Betyan, whatever the hell her name is, camp, if you're on Fox News, you're part of the establishment, Mark Levin. they're kind of the current enemy in my book because they're supposed to be on our side and they're lying to us. But we used to know the bad guys were like the real villains. You know, like Bill Gates. Freaking nerds. Yeah.
I'm so sick of Bill Gates, dude. Oh, dude, I'd beat the piss out of that nerd if I saw him, dude. No amount of money in the world that he has could ever get him a non-nerd body that he has. Freaking nerd, dude. An old one, a pervert type one, Epstein one, irreversible chlamydia, irreversible bad eyesight with nerd glasses. Hey! Coronavirus was your fucking fault! You fucking nerd! If I had 3 verbs to describe me, proud, American, energy, filled with all 3 of those in a very hetero way, very platonic way. Good. Hey, Don, what'd I tell you about looking in here? Good choice.
Yeah, he's probably one of the weirdest dudes I've ever met.
We used to look at the weird dudes and be like, hey, you're on our team because we have a common enemy. The weird dudes are the ones that are talking the truth, I think. All right, I'm going to also give you one last thing, and I didn't mean to hold it till this long, but I did on accident. Let's do the discussion of the Israel Project, TIP. We started off talking about the propaganda game, which is pretty clearly happening. I'm going to go and I'll show you this. This is the published video I just found on this guy here, Jordan Satchel, who was a good voice during COVID, of all things. So there's your segue for it. And apparently also is shilling for a pro-Israeli viewpoint, which you can't directly sell to people. And that is kind of an interesting statement. So here we go. Let's play this real quick.
There are also other things that we do that are completely off the radar. When we work together with a lot of other organizations, we produce content that they then publish with their own name on it.
The Israel Project is supplying what it calls white label, that is unbranded content, to other outlets.
We're putting together a lot of pro-Israel media through various social media channels that aren't the Israel Project's channel.
Says he worked with the Israel Project on a secretive social
We
media
have a lot of
campaign.
side projects that we're trying to influence the public debate with. So that's why it's a secretive thing, because we don't want people to know that these side projects are associated with the Israel Project.
Just to be clear, on a hidden camera, if you tell people that we don't want people to know what we're doing, we don't want the messaging that we're doing to be drawn back and associated with us, that's referred to as an information op, for whatever it's worth. That's laundering information and trying to get content or information into people's eyes without them knowing the originating source. I've heard a lot of people on the political right, Will Chamberlain is one of them as well, saying, I cannot wait for the Justice Department to start investigating the foreign influence money that is involved in social media influencers. And I'm sure there is some of it. I just don't know who's doing it. And I wouldn't make any allegation I do. Their belief is that it's Candace Owens getting money, Tucker Carlson getting money, Alex Jones, me, whatever, Owen Schroyer. I have no idea what anybody's getting. I tell you, I'm not. And then in reality, it's actually happening. And you've got people actually talking about it, including this guy, whose name, again, is Jordan Satchel. He's the one who's talking on camera. I'm going to keep playing it.
TIP runs a collection of Facebook communities that cover topics ranging from history and the environment to current affairs and feminism.
So they're showing you.
But their affiliations to the Israel Project are deliberately vague.
Yeah, it says TIP
Why
instead
is
of
it
the
that they
Israel
can't
Project.
be connected to the Israel Project? I think it's because we want to be people to view them as subjectively as possible. We have a team of 13 people, and we're working on a lot of videos, explainers. A lot of it is just random topics, and then maybe 25% of it would be Israel or Jewish based.
So just saying again what he said. The whole goal is to infiltrate the space, have a bunch of sort of like theme topics. You're listening to a baking channel, you're watching things that are about something you're interested in, and then drop in 10, 15, 20% of the content to try to slant your ideas. This is a pretty sophisticated tactic. This is slipping and laundering information into otherwise non-political content. And by the way, not taking credit for what you're actually doing here. I mean, that's what foreign influence operations look like if you were going to do it. It's more on the nose than some other things, but it's certainly not in public by any means.
The Israel brand is increasingly toxic. So you can't sell Israel directly. You have to have sort of other hip stuff that's just very innocuous, fun. And then from time to time, you're going to slip something about Israel in.
So for those of you that are listening and you didn't just see, it just said this is Cup of Jane. It is a girl power focused like Facebook group. And then they slip in some innocuous content about how the Israeli military painted one of their fighter jets all pink for breast cancer awareness because, you know, that's positive. I mean, it's a PR campaign. It's just, seems like it should be a little bit more public if it's coming from a foreign nation.
Is the idea that all the rest of the non-Israel stuff is to allow the Israel stuff to pass better? Like that's the key thing?
Just that we want to like blend in everything.
Cool. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you. This is the thing. This is what information ops look like. And God forbid you be on the receiving end of this thing. And then somebody comes and tells you like, hey, you know, we've been supporting you and we need you to do this thing. I had a group support me. They underwrote the podcast totally transparently. You guys probably already know this if you've been paying attention for long enough, if you've been part of the program. I appreciate you guys. We still have a social media channel. We combined. My face is all over the social media channel they created. There's 124,000 followers on the Catholic Vote YouTube page, of which between the lines, it was a weekly segment I did with them. It features my face on every single thumbnail. Like, this is not, if you guys thought I did that for free, sorry, I did not. They helped me because we didn't have a paycheck coming in. And I would help them for free today because I still believe in the principles of what they're about, and they're a co-aligned sort of group. By the way, they had some pretty decent reporting this morning in today's Loop. If you go read it, the first thing is about the ceasefire. The second story is about the massive bombing campaign carried out by Israel, which seems like it's problematic if you wanted to have a ceasefire. These influence campaigns are happening. Now, whether or not you're willing to look through them and challenge your own assumptions and say, hey, it's interesting. Why does my feminist group want to report to me about some foreign government painting an aircraft? That seems like it's totally out of line for what they're normally doing, or is it? So try to recognize them. I'll try to recognize them. I think I have one more thing that's funny here. I should play one more funny thing and then we'll shut it down here. How about a song about what just happened? We gave you a catch up. We started off with a Men in Tights, what we're trying to do. I gave you the parody version of the press conference. Here's a song that's a cover of a Fall Out Boy song, kind of giving you the real deal on where we're at right now.
We got ourselves into a war again. Oh, we're sending our youth into a new meat grinder. Wonder what the reason will be this week. Maybe they're bad or have weapons of mass destruction. Maybe their leader's a despot who wants to take over the world. But we've got phones now, so we know this, that our elected officials are compromised by Zionists. So we're gunning down Browns in Iranian towns. It's Netanyahu said to do it. That's really all there is to it. Israel took all our tax dollars, used them on bullets. We killed the old Ayatollah, not even for oil, cause our media are propagandists. They were dumb enough to believe that we didn't go to war because Trump's on the Epstein list.
Whoa, you didn't see that one coming. Anyway, it all feels like a lot of these things are connected and they're all distractions to us. And so those of us that are paying attention, we're going to keep doing it. Hopefully we'll get Steve Friend on here tomorrow for the Friendly Friday. Thank you guys for listening to the program. Appreciate all of you guys that share it. All of you have subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. My buddy, who I haven't seen in 2 weeks because we had to do a Steve Baker thing, which resulted in a weird phone call to people in New Mexico. God bless you. See you on the other end. Have a good Thursday.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.